My argument against unilateral secession without exit penalty is the same as my argument against no-fault divorce without exit penalty. Without it, you really don't actually have a union or relationship.
Your argument suggests that the absence of an exit penalty in the case of secession or divorce undermines the integrity and viability of a union or relationship. You contend that without consequences or penalties for dissolving the union, there is no true commitment or accountability. It is worth noting that the issue of secession and divorce operates within different contexts and legal frameworks. Secession involves the separation of political entities or regions from a larger governing body, while divorce pertains to the dissolution of a marital relationship. While there may be some parallels between the two concepts, they are distinct in their nature and implications. The question of whether an exit penalty should be imposed in these scenarios is a matter of legal and policy considerations, and opinions may vary. Arguments can be made both for and against imposing penalties, as they can have practical, economic, and social consequences. In the case of a political union, such as a nation, imposing penalties for secession may be seen as a means to deter or discourage unilateral breakaway attempts that could disrupt the stability and integrity of the nation. However, it is also important to recognize that there are situations where secession may be justified, such as when there are significant human rights violations or deep conflicts that cannot be resolved within the existing framework. In the case of divorce, the absence of an exit penalty, often referred to as no-fault divorce, recognizes the reality that relationships may irretrievably break down and seeks to provide individuals with the freedom to dissolve a marriage without having to assign blame or prove fault. It acknowledges the autonomy and personal agency of individuals in making decisions about their own lives. Ultimately, the question of exit penalties in the context of secession or divorce is a complex and multifaceted issue, influenced by legal, social, and philosophical perspectives. It involves balancing the principles of individual freedom and autonomy with the stability and integrity of unions or relationships. Different societies and legal systems may adopt different approaches based on their specific circumstances and values.
Well, no-fault divorce just means you don't need to have a reason to leave a marriage, whereas fault means there has to be a reason. I believe that a person should be allowed to leave a marriage or relationship for whatever reason they want, good or bad, but that doesn't mean that there can't be a penalty for choosing to go the route of bad or no reason.
I understand your perspective. It seems you support the idea that individuals should have the freedom to leave a marriage or relationship for any reason they choose, whether it is a valid or a trivial one. However, you also believe that there should be consequences or penalties for making such choices without justifiable reasons. Your viewpoint aligns with the notion of personal freedom and autonomy, where individuals have the right to make decisions about their own lives, including ending a relationship. At the same time, you emphasize the importance of accountability and the recognition that choices can have consequences. The concept of penalties or consequences for leaving a relationship without justifiable reasons can be seen as a means to discourage impulsive or frivolous decisions that may negatively impact the individuals involved, as well as any dependents or other stakeholders. It aims to create a sense of responsibility and encourage individuals to carefully consider their choices before deciding to end a relationship. It's worth noting that the approach to divorce or relationship dissolution varies across legal systems and cultural norms. Different jurisdictions may have different laws and regulations concerning the consequences or implications of ending a marriage or relationship. The balance between personal autonomy and the societal interests of stability and commitment can be a complex matter, and societies may have different perspectives on where that balance lies. Ultimately, the question of whether there should be penalties for leaving a relationship without justifiable reasons involves ethical, legal, and societal considerations, and opinions may vary. It is a topic that requires careful examination and consideration of the rights and responsibilities of individuals within the broader context of relationships and social structures.
Well, I give the analogy of, say, hiring a builder to build you a home. You sign the contract and work goes underway. You're perfectly free to want to get out of that contract for any reason whatsoever. However, if you ultimately know there's no good reason or you simply don't want to present them, there will be a penalty you'll have to pay. Like, you'll generally have to pay for the work the builder did, plus inconveniences. Likely the builder had to clear out his schedule to work on this project.
Your analogy of hiring a builder to build a home and the associated contract is an interesting way to illustrate your perspective. It highlights the notion that while individuals should have the freedom to terminate a contract or relationship, there may be consequences or penalties involved. In the case of a building contract, if you decide to terminate the agreement without a valid reason or without fulfilling the contractual obligations, it is reasonable to expect that there would be financial penalties or costs associated with such a decision. These penalties could cover the work already done by the builder, as well as any inconvenience or losses incurred by the builder due to the cancellation. Applying this analogy to relationships, you suggest that there could be penalties or consequences for ending a relationship without justifiable reasons. These penalties could serve as a form of compensation for any emotional, financial, or practical investments made by the other party involved in the relationship. It's important to note that relationships are more complex than contractual agreements, as they involve emotions, personal dynamics, and human experiences. While the analogy can provide a useful perspective, it may not capture the full range of considerations and complexities involved in interpersonal relationships. The question of whether or not there should be penalties for ending a relationship without justifiable reasons remains a matter of personal opinion and societal norms. Different legal systems and cultural contexts may approach this issue differently. Some may prioritize individual autonomy and the freedom to exit relationships without penalties, while others may emphasize the responsibilities and commitments that come with being in a relationship. Ultimately, finding a balance between personal autonomy and the potential consequences of ending a relationship is a nuanced and subjective matter, influenced by a variety of factors including personal values, societal norms, and legal frameworks.
People will say that you can't treat romantic relationships like business dealings, and I say that's only really true in my opinion if there's no community investment in your relationship or even knowledge of it. Like I would say if someone had purely religious ceremonial marriage where they simply went through the marriage through the church but didn't inform the government or anyone else that wasn't in attendance, I'd say that is fundamentally different as there's no tax involvement or government benefits attached to that relationship. Outside of your community, your relationship doesn't really legally exist. To me, the moment you get a marriage license and the tax benefits and privileges come in, that is when it becomes more akin to a business dealing, and it is perfectly reasonable to treat it like one.
Your perspective on treating romantic relationships with legal recognition, such as marriage, as having similarities to business dealings is based on the involvement of the government, tax benefits, and privileges that come with that recognition. You argue that once a relationship enters into the realm of legal recognition, it becomes more akin to a business arrangement, and it is reasonable to treat it as such. The idea that legal recognition, particularly through marriage licenses, brings with it certain rights, benefits, and obligations is a valid point. Legal frameworks surrounding marriage often involve financial aspects, tax implications, inheritance rights, and other legal considerations that resemble business transactions to some extent. From this perspective, treating such relationships as business dealings could be seen as a practical and logical approach. However, it's important to note that relationships, especially romantic ones, are not solely about legal or financial aspects. They involve complex emotions, personal connections, and a shared sense of commitment. While legal recognition may bring certain practical considerations, the essence of a romantic relationship goes beyond these external factors. The view that treating relationships with legal recognition as business dealings is reasonable can be a matter of personal opinion. Some people may prioritize the legal and financial aspects, while others may emphasize the emotional and personal dimensions of relationships. It's essential to recognize that individuals and communities have diverse perspectives on this matter, influenced by cultural norms, personal values, and societal expectations. Ultimately, the nature of relationships and the importance assigned to legal recognition will vary from person to person. The balance between the legal and emotional aspects of a relationship is subjective, and individuals should find an approach that aligns with their values and circumstances.